Hey guys, Alexandra here. I just kind of wanted to go over my story of my pregnancy with you guys, then eventually through my labor and delivery. March 27th of 2018, I was at work and started feeling really sick. I ended up having to leave work because I was so sick to my stomach, and I had kind of had some other symptoms, and I was like, So I called my husband and I'm like, I should probably get a pregnancy test, right? And he's like, yeah, you should. So I went to the store and I bought a pack of 3 just to be sure. And I went home and I took them all and called my husband and told him that we were pregnant. We were super excited. So the first person that I told was my sister, because she was leaving the very next day to go on a trip around the world. It was supposed to be gone for possibly like 6 months to a year, and she ended up cutting it short. The second person that I told was my best friend Maria. She and I were supposed to go on a cruise in October of last year. So I invited her over for dinner and I was like, hey, I have some bad news, but it's followed up with some good news, so don't worry. And she was like, okay, like what's wrong? And I was like, so I'm gonna have to back out of the cruise. And she's like, oh man, that sucks. And I'm like, yeah, but it's because you're gonna be an aunt, I'm pregnant. And so she was super excited, of course. And so Maria ended up going with me that night, and we went shopping to get gifts to like tell my parents and my in-laws that we were having a baby. We told my in-laws the very next day, and my mother-in-law cried. She was so happy, and my father-in-law was super excited, and of course brothers-in-law were super excited. Then we told my mom, who also cried, and then we told my dad. He screamed in the middle of the restaurant. Needless to say, by the time we left, everyone was telling us congratulations, because this is the first grandbaby for my husband's mom and for my parents. So it was like a big deal. My favorite reaction was probably my brother's. He came in town for Easter. We decided to tell him that day. And of course it was April 1st. So he thought we were April Foolsing him, and he refused to believe it. And it took some serious convincing. But it was so funny because I'm like, gave him, it was a little Easter egg and had a little piece of paper in it that said, Baby Cruz coming November 2018. And he just looked at me and he said, you're lying. This is an April Fool's joke. Like once he realized, he was super excited. So back to the day I found out I was pregnant. That sickness that I had, yeah, that didn't go away for the first 6 months. And that was with prescription medication. The beginning of May, I flew to Maryland. I have a cousin who lives over there, and she was giving us her stroller and car seat. So I flew over there to see them, and I spent a few days over there with them. We went to DC. It was super fun. We had a really good time. It was a good visit. Right before I left, my cousin checked my temperature, and I had like I think it was like 101 or something. I got home and I called the on-call nurse for my doctor, who said that I needed to come into their emergency room so that they could check me, because that fever was too high. That it was dangerous, especially if it kept getting higher. They wanted me to come in to check and see what was going on, because that wasn't normal. We got to the hospital and they started doing blood work, gave me an IV, started running a bunch of tests. Turns out I had a kidney infection. Now, I had 0 symptoms of a kidney infection, like none. They ended up letting me go late the next day because they said that everything was looking good. They kept checking my levels. Praise God, everything was okay, and the baby was fine throughout everything. Then at the end of May, we had our gender reveal, where we found out it was a boy. So my husband and I got married in August. We decided to get married on the beach, just the 2 of us. So what we did was we had a little reception before we left. That way we could still celebrate with family and friends and dance and have fun. But I'm really glad that we did it that way, because I think it was good for us to just have like some time. And I am I'm not super shy, but when it comes to like expressing my emotions, I am. So that was really nice, because I didn't have to do all that in front of everybody. We had a beautiful wedding on the beach at sunset in Gulf Shores, and then we stayed Gulf Shores for a few days and had like a honeymoon. and we ate at Lambert's a lot. I bought their rolls to take home. And then September came and I had my first baby shower, which was held in Dallas, where some of my husband's family lives. They wanted to throw us a baby shower over there. So we took another little mini vacay and went to Dallas for the weekend and had a beautiful baby shower there. They had it in, I don't even remember what the building was called, but y'all, it was gorgeous. The food was delicious. We played games. It was really fun. I had a lot of really funny pictures. The end of September, we took maternity pictures. Those turned out beautiful. I absolutely love the photographer. She is our photographer for everything. Then in October, I had 3 baby showers, which sounds like a lot, but let me explain. So the first baby shower, all my coworkers got together and they threw me a little baby shower on our lunch break. It was super cute. They decorated everything in the break room, so nice. So my second baby shower was the baby shower that my mom and my grandmother threw for me. It was at their house. And so I decided to do my son's nursery theme, Peter Pan, because it was just different. It's not something that's really common, and I loved that movie growing up, and I loved it because he's a little boy, and you know, Peter Pan's whole theme was like, don't grow up. They decorated everything in Peter Pan, and one of my mom's friends is a chef, and she made this super awesome fruit bowl, and it looks so cool. It's a ship. My third baby shower that month, my 4th in total, and threw it at my dad's house. It was for like my dad's side of the family, and some of my coworkers were invited to that one as well, and my sister has some friends that I'm close to as well, and so they all came to that one. It was Peter Pan themed too. The food, of course, was good. I mean, I was pregnant, so I loved food. My due date was November 15th. So I had my last doctor's appointment the first week of November, and that's when my doctor decided that we needed to induce because I had been dilated about a centimeter and a half for 3 weeks, and I was not progressing at all. We went in, filled out all the paperwork, then they took us upstairs to the room. I had a change, they did my IV, took some blood. They started me on the Pitocin about 7 a.m. I was a little overwhelmed with this being my first baby, and I was scared about labor and delivery and what to expect. I cannot tell you how many YouTube videos I watched of people telling their stories. So if you're one of those people watching my video trying to figure out what to expect, let me tell you this. Everyone's story is different for every single birth. I had the Pitocin at 7, and then my doctor came in around 8:30ish and broke my water, which let me just tell you guys, I've heard that's really painful. Now for me, it wasn't. It was not painful at all. Like, I did not feel a thing. Nothing was happening. I was still at a centimeter and a half all day. The nurses called my doctor, talked to her. She decided to take me off the Pitocin and then start me back on it in about an hour or two. Off the Pitocin at 6. They finally let me have some food. I was so excited to be able to eat a meal. All I did all day was complain to my husband about how hungry I was. After lunchtime, he was like, whatever. I'm just kidding. He was great. And around 7:45, 8ish, they came back and started me on the Pitocin again. So when they did it this time, I started contracting and started progressing. They came and were checking me and things were going along. The contractions got really bad. By 3 a.m., I had decided that I was going to go ahead and get the epidural, which let me just tell you was really, really hard for me because I had really wanted to just kind of go into labor on my own. I wanted to have a natural birth. And so for things to not be going the way I had planned, I was kind of freaking out. I woke my husband up and I'm telling my husband, like, I need the epidural, but I really don't want it. He's like, you don't need to be in this much pain. It's not good for you and it's not good for the baby. You're going to stress yourself and stress the baby. And I think, honestly, that's the only reason that I ended up getting it. So I called the nurse. She came in and she's like, "Are you nervous?" And I'm like, "Yeah, just a little bit." So she kind of talked me down a little bit. Then they said that my husband had to leave the room, which I knew that was going to happen. But then when it actually happened, I was freaking out a little bit because I wanted him like to sit next to me. I wanted him right by my side the entire time. I am so blessed. I did not feel my epidural at all. I felt a tiny pinch when they gave me the numbing medicine in my back. But as far as feeling the epidural, I did not feel a thing. The only thing I felt was after they already had the catheter in my back felt cold. And so then I asked for some warm blankets because I was freezing. Recommend getting the epidural if you think you need it. I was finally able to sleep. And when I say sleep, I mean I slept until about 1:15, 1:30ish. And I mean, of course, like I would wake up here and there. Around 1:50, the nurse came in to check make one of the monitors had gone off. The baby's heart rate had dropped. It kind of made them nervous, so they came in to like check and see, you know, like I make sure everything was okay, see what was kind of going on. Did my vitals, and I had a temperature. With my water being broke at over 24 hours now, it heightened my chance for infection. And with me having a fever, that's not a good sign. And with baby's heart rate dropping, they decided that they needed to call the doctor because I was still not progressing the way they wanted. Once I had reached 5 centimeters, I was still dilating very, very slowly. I ultimately only dilated 7 centimeters. The nurse went and called my doctor, and the doctor told her that they needed to do an emergency C-section. I'm getting teary-eyed just thinking about it. I was so scared, and my husband was so scared. I was so worried that my baby wasn't gonna be okay, or I wasn't gonna be okay, or maybe both. I did not know what to expect for a C-section because I hadn't really planned for one. And then lastly, of course, I was upset again because things didn't go the way that I had planned, the way that I wanted. I don't really remember everything. I just remember them coming in saying emergency C-section. I remember saying I want my mom. And they came and brought my husband his scrubs to put on, and my mom helped him get those on. His mom helped him get those on. And then they wheeled me back to the OR. It was freezing in there. So they told me my husband was gonna come with me. And I kept looking for him because after we left the hallway, I couldn't see him anymore. And I was really freaking out. The anesthesiologist was sitting by my head, and he was like, you know, like, "Are you okay? What's wrong?" And I'm like, "My husband, where is my husband?" And he said, "He's right outside." And as soon as he said that, I remember seeing George walk through the door. Like, it was just such a stress reliever seeing him and knowing that he was there. He was so strong for me. He seriously was my rock. They gave me some more, the epidural, and I went completely numb from about my rib cage down. Couldn't feel anything, which I was super grateful for because they were about to cut me wide open. So the doctor says, "Okay, are you ready to meet your baby? You're about to meet your baby." And I'm like about to start crying because I'm so happy, and my husband and I are just staring at each other, like smiling with tears in our eyes. The doctor, she started cutting my stomach, and I could feel some pressure on my left side. My right side was completely numb. I couldn't feel anything, but I felt some pressure on the left side, and it really scared me. And I was like, "Oh, I can feel that. I can feel that." And they were like, "It's just pressure. Everything's okay. It's normal to feel pressure sometimes." And so I was like, okay. And, just having them reassure me that it was just pressure. Like in my head, I guess I knew that I couldn't really feel them cutting me open. Obviously, I'd be like screaming bloody murder, right? But everything went so fast, and like everything was such a blur that the doctor said, "Your baby's here." And I heard him cry for the first time, and I immediately just started blubbering like a baby. And my husband and I were looking at each other smiling. He started crying too. Then they cleaned him up. Well, they showed him to me, but I couldn't really see very well because they have the sheet like right below your chest, so you can't really see anything. So it was kind of hard for me to see him. I remember I did get to see his face, and of course he looked just like my husband. They gave him to my husband to hold, and of course I couldn't hold him because they were like putting all my insides back together and stitching me up. My husband came over there and showed him to me, and he said he's perfect. And he is, like he was, and he is so perfect. He is the greatest blessing that either one of us ever have received. So to all of the pregnant ladies watching this, just know that the most amazing day of your life is yet to come. I love my husband to death, and our wedding day was perfect. But I can honestly say, and my husband would agree with me 110%, the day Mateo was born was the greatest day of our lives. It changed